Okay, Andy. Good afternoon, everyone. Online students, can you hear my voice? Say yes or no to me once. For request dispatcher, the concept, um, let me repeat once. Hope two programs are there for you and type it and check it. Request dispatcher is an interface from Java X.Servlet package, which is used to perform servlet communications. This request dispatcher will provide two important methods. One is forward method and one is include method. And forward method is used to perform forward communication process, and include method is used to perform include communication process. That's the information. Forward communication meaning is servlet program 1 will take the request and forward the request to servlet program 2, and the servlet program 2 will give the response. That's the information in forward communication. The second servlet program can be replaced with JSP or HTML. In include communication process, servlet program 1 will take the request and generate response, but the response is included with the response of second servlet. In yesterday's program, whenever that book servlet generating result, the result again included with the input.html, that you have to observe it through that program. So type about two programs and cross check it. And today I'm planning to use your bean concept anyway. The classes which are constructed with some rules, 4 rules will be there. If we construct one class using these 4 rules, we call it as a bean class. The 4 rules are: the class must be implemented from java.io.serializable interface. The variables declared in the class must be private variables, and the class must be declared with zero argument constructor or zero parameter constructor. The class must be declared with setter methods and getter methods. So what is the meaning of setter method? Means the methods which are used to get the data from the object are known as getter methods, and the methods which are used to set the data to the object or load the data to the object, we are calling it as setter. Which are used to load the data to object, they are setter, and the methods which are used to get the data from the object, we are calling it as getters. So setter methods and getter methods. While you are constructing setter and getter, every variable in class must have its own setter method and getter method. If 4 variables are there, 4 setter methods and 4 getter methods. The main purpose of Java bean class is to generate these bean objects, and the bean objects will hold data going on to database, or bean objects will hold data coming from the database. So we accommodate the data into beans. From there we send it to the database. Again we collect the data from the database onto bean. From the bean we display it. Today I'm going to explain that flow to you. And yesterday small theoretical general discussion we had based on serialization process. Serialization process is the process of converting object into binary string The process we call it as a serialization process. Based on this serialization, the objects can be serializable objects and non-serializable objects. Serializable objects meaning is nothing but the objects which support serialization process. We call it as serializable objects and which can be converted into binary stream. That's the meaning actually. Advantage of serializable objects is the objects can travel on the network or move on the network. Whenever we want to generate serializable objects, the class must be implemented from java.io.serializable interface. That is a rule. If a class is not implemented from serializable interface, the class objects will not support serialization. That's the meaning. So opposite to serializable objects, we had non-serializable objects. The objects which will not support serialization process, we call it as non-serializable objects. All your JDBC objects are non-serializable objects. Sir, how can we identify non-serializable objects? Means the objects generated from the class is not implemented from serializable. If it is not implemented from serializable interface, the objects are non-serializable objects. It's a theory. And what about core Java objects? If anybody asked a question, all your core Java objects are serializable objects from your library. That's a theoretical information delivered yesterday. Okay, right. Now make a heading for today's theoretical. Define attribute in servlet programming. Attribute in servlet programming. Attribute in servlet programming. Attribute in servlet programming. Right. So attribute means one variable actually in servlet. Look here. The objects layout, one diagram is there with you actually. So whenever I'm speaking about your servlet life cycle, there is one object created known as context I set. Do you remember the first discussion? Right, context. And one object is there config, request, response, and print writer. Today, let me draw that form once. Right. In the process of executing your application, whatever I'm drawing, remember it. In the process of executing your application, I said the application will be loaded onto server or deployed onto server. When the application is deployed, automatically one object is created. What is the first object created now? Servlet context object. The first object created is servlet context object. Still notes not given on servlet context. I am busy in working with request and response, and still I am establishing communication between two servlets. I am establishing. Still I not reached to that component. I'll come separately on this component again to work it. But on the first day of first representation, the first object created is servlet context loaded with server information here. Loaded with server information here. So servlet context object created loaded with server information. After this, the control will go to web.xml. I said through web.xml welcome file list. Using that welcome file list, we had one input.html or any other HTML page as a home page. After that, one servlet program will come. After that, one servlet program will be loaded. When the servlet program is loaded, automatically one object is created. We are calling it as what object now? Servlet config object. Servlet, servlet config object. This servlet config object is loaded with servlet name. Loaded with servlet name. That is, some name will be given here. The name is loaded. Now still I not worked with config, not worked with the context. Separate notes will be given about them. Correct. Separate notes, and what they are going to do also will give the informations to you. But when the servlet program loaded, servlet context object created automatically. After servlet config object creation completed, servlet program instantiated means object created. For servlet program object created. After servlet program object creation completed, we can find three lifecycle methods. One is init, one is service, one is destroy. These three methods are executed automatically in the same order: init, service, and destroy. In the process of executing in the process of executing service method, two more objects are created. One is servlet request and one more is servlet response. Two objects are created. One is servlet request object created. Servlet request object created. This servlet request object is loaded with the data submitted from HTML form. Yes or no? Right? The data what you submitted from your HTML form, the data will be available in the servlet request. So whenever we want to collect the data from the servlet request, we are using one method known as what now? Get parameter method. Daily we are using the same process. And here servlet response. Servlet response object is created. And this servlet response object will support to send the data outside. That is out. Now, whenever we want to send the data outside, we are taking the support of print writer. So print writer object is created by using get writer method. So here we are imagining one object known as print writer object. Print writer object. This print writer object is linked to this response. Print writer object is linked to this response. Like this. So these are the objects you are imagining up to now. Of course, you worked with request, you worked with response. Last 3-4 applications are request and response. Still that context not worked, config not worked. We not yet worked. Okay, right. Now this servlet program will have two more objects. one is session. HTTP session, one object, and one more object is cookie. So one object name is HTTP session. HTTP session. One object is cookie. These two objects we call it as session tracking objects. These objects we call it as session tracking objects. Session tracking objects. These are session tracking objects. Session tracking objects. Now look here. So up to now, which objects we are using, sir, means whatever the HTML form submitted, the data is available in the request object. Whatever the data submitted from HTML form, the data is available in the request object. To collect the data from the request object, we are using get parameter method. That only practice done up to now. Okay, right. In that way, I increased some level to indirectly forward level. That is forward communication, include communication, I done it. Only two models has been completed up to now. Okay, right. Now, why I'm drawing remaining objects means to add that attribute. I'm introducing one concept attribute. Now see there. Now, here one database will be there like this. Here, one database. This is the database. Database. Now my servlet program want to communicate with the database. But according to the market rule, we must not write database code in the servlet. You must not write. Generally in the JDBC, you will take one program, you will write the code inside. But here, part of servlet program, you must not write your database codes. So the database codes are written separately. That layer we call it as DAO. The layer we call it as DAO layer. DAO. DAO means data access object. Data access object. Data access object. So DAO. Data access object. This data access object will be communicating with the database. Will be communicating with the database. Database. So this data access object is communicating with the database. And here the beans will be there. Here the beans. Java beans. Where Java beans on demand, they'll be part of this DAO. And down JCF objects. Java collection framework. JCF means Java collection framework. This is the layer. This is the layer. This is your background layer now. Beans will be there, DAO will be there, and Java collection framework will be there. So background layer. Right. Now look here. So total 10 objects will be there. Total 10. If we count it, 10 will be there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Working with the 10 objects is a servlet programming. After now you are working with only two objects, that is request and response. And the response you are sending with print writer. Total 3 objects. One is request object, one is response object, one is print writer. These 3 objects only covered up to now normally. So what you observed about servlet request now, whatever the data submitted from HTML form, the data is available in the servlet request. We are collecting the data from servlet request by using one method known as get parameter method. Whenever I want to send the data outside, we create object for print writer. Through that print writer, we are sending the data. So this only information in the last 3 programs. Now attribute. Sir, attribute means what? Make it. So all of it drawn this diagram, right? This diagram should be drawn and you have to by-heart this diagram and all these names should be by-hearted. So servlet programming ended means on that day, these 10 objects you must be in position to speak. Then that servlet program will be ended. Okay, right? Now attribute. So attribute is a term normally used by database trainers will use attribute, I think. And your HTML trainer will use a word known as attribute generally. According to servlet program, attribute means one variable. Make it. Attribute is a variable in servlet programming. Attribute is a variable in servlet programming which can be added to servlet context object, which can be added to servlet context object, servlet request object, and HTTP session object. Attribute is a variable in servlet programming which can be added to servlet context object, servlet request object, and HTTP session object. You can add it to context, request, and session. Right. See there in the diagram, I am adding one A A stands for attribute like this. So I can add one variable here. I am calling it as attribute, can be added to context object. Attribute can be added to request object. Attribute can be added to HTTP session object, this one. So attribute is available in three locations. Available in three locations. You can add attribute to context, you can add attribute to request, you can add attribute to HTTP session. Attribute means one variable. You can add it. Okay, right. So the following are the methods related to attribute. Make it. The following are the methods related to attribute. Related to attribute. The following are the methods related to attribute. The following are the methods related to attribute. Right. So see there. The diagram what I drawn to you, daily read the names and without seeing you must draw the diagram, because all interview questions will be there only. That total diagram only. They'll ask context, configure, require, on the names you must practice. So if you read more than once, the names you can remember more. Okay, right. The following are the methods related to attribute. Anyway, now Java P, Java X dot servlet context. I am opening context. So servlet context is an interface actually. Can you see? Is an interface. Right. This servlet context will have some methods. See there. Set attribute, get attribute, remove attribute. If more attributes are there, get attribute names. Total 4 methods will be there. Make it. Set attribute. Set attribute. Get attribute. Get attribute. Remove attribute. Remove attribute. Get attribute names. Get attribute names. Get attribute names. Like this. So set attribute means adding attribute. Generally, one line. Set attribute method is used to add attribute to the objects. Attribute to the objects means maybe context, maybe request, maybe session. That's objects. Set attribute method is used to add attribute to the objects. The objects can be servlet context object or request object or session object. So method signature, method signature, method signature. In what form it is available here? Set attribute, you can see public abstract set attribute. So public abstract void set attribute of java.lang.string java.lang.object. So two parameters, nothing but name and value. Name is in the form of a string. The value can be any object. You can keep any object as a value there. So meaning actually. Get attribute. This get attribute method. This get attribute method is used to get the attribute from the objects. This get attribute method is used to get the attribute from the objects. One is setting, one is getting anyway. Now, method signature, in what form it is available? Method signature. Right. So I am taking from library get attribute of attribute name. Return type is object. Object means parent of all the classes. Java.lang.object class is the parent class of all the classes. So get attribute method can return any type of object. It's called object class. So make it. So public abstract java.lang.object get attribute of java.lang.string. So when you don't want the attribute, we can remove from that objects. So remove attribute method. Remove attribute method is used to delete the attribute from the objects. Delete the attribute from the objects. Remove attribute method is used to delete the attributes from the object. Method signature. Method signature. Right. Remove attribute here. Remove attribute. So public public abstract void remove attribute of java.lang.string. Public abstract void remove attribute of java.lang.string. If we say the attribute name, automatically attribute is removed. Get attribute names actually. If more number of attributes are available in the object, we can get all that attributes. So get attribute names method is used to get all attribute names from the objects. If multiple attributes are there, get attribute names. Get attributes. Names method is used to get all the attribute names from the objects. Names from the objects. Right. Method signature. Method signature. So get attributes names return type is enumeration, right? Enumeration here. Get attribute names. Return type is enumeration. Enumeration is from collection framework. Enumeration is one iterative statement available from collection framework. Anyway, like this. So public abstract java.util.enumeration java.lang.string. So get attribute names. Get attribute names. So enumeration is one iterative statement. Somewhere I'll explain that enumeration to you. Who knows from collection framework? Well, if not, somewhere I'll use that enumeration to you. Core Java component. Right. So these are the methods related to attribute. Attribute means one variable which can be added to context object, request object, and session object. So there are four methods available to you. Set attribute, get attribute, remove attribute majorly. If more attributes are available, you can get the names. Get attribute names. From there, you can retrieve it. So return the more coming, no? More means group. Group means collection component needed. So they gone for enumeration. Okay, right. Enumeration available from util. See there, I'll open. Enumeration, Java P, Java dot util dot enumeration, one interface. You can see one interface. Enumeration. So that is acts like an iterative statement actually. How many of you know string tokenizer? Anybody know string tokenizer? No. Java P, Java dot util dot string tokenizer. String tokenizer is an implementation of enumeration. Can you see implements? So string tokenizer, hope it's a part of your string chapter to break the given string into pieces. String tokenizer, it is an implementation of enumeration. So this is core part actually. That core part entered into library of Servlet. Right. Okay. Right. Somewhere I'll find and I'll give the information to you. Okay. Now, scope of attribute. One question is there. Scope of attribute. Scope of attribute. Here, scope means where I can use them. Scope, or you can say visibility also, means where I can use them. It's called scope. Suppose attribute in servlet context. Actually, when this servlet context object is created, when the web application deployed, then the servlet context object will come. So servlet context object can be used by all the servlet programs available in the application. Everybody can use that. So because the object belongs to container, the object belongs to application. So total application can use that object. So attribute in servlet context can be used by all the servlet programs of same web application. Make a statement. Scope. Scope means where I can access them. Attribute. Attribute in servlet context. Attribute in servlet context object can be used by all the servlet programs, all the servlet programs of web application, all the servlet programs of web application. Attribute in servlet context object can be used by all the servlet programs of web application. So all the servlet programs of web application. So all servlet programs can use it. Right. Attribute. Attribute in servlet request. Servlet request object. Attribute in servlet request object. Whatever the attribute you added to servlet request object can be available to next servlet program in forward communication. When you forward the request from one servlet to another servlet, in the second servlet program can access this attribute. Attribute in servlet request object can be accessed by second servlet program or next servlet program in forward communication process. In forward communication process. Attribute in servlet request object can be accessed by second servlet program in forward communication process. Now, attribute in HTTP session. Attribute in HTTP session object is available from user login to log out. User login to log out. Attribute in HTTP session object is available from user login to user logout. So login to logout. Every project will have session, no? Login to logout session. So there the attribute is available. Once logs out, the attribute will become invalidate. That's called session. This is I'll explain this session anyway. So these are the reading points about your attribute. Attribute in servlet program means one variable actually. The variable can be added to three objects. One is context object, one is request object, one is session object. So theory. Now here in this diagram now, yesterday given a beans anyway. Sir, what is this DAO? Make a shading. Define DAO layer or DAO. FAQ. Define DAO. Define DAO. Define DAO. DAO stands for data access object. Data access object, and which is separate layer in MVC. DAO stands for data access object, and which is separate layer in MVC, model view controller in MVC, to hold database related code. Database related codes. Database related code. Simply you can say persistent logics. Persistent logics. Persistent logics. Nothing but database related code and the logics. Now, the Servlet program from now, whatever the Servlet program you had, to the Servlet program, this is DAO object. Our servlet interacts with this DAO, and this DAO interacts with the database. Interacts with the database. Here, database connection logic. Database connection. Insert logic. Retrieve logic. Of course, create logic will be there. Create logic. Update logic. Delete logic. So database connections, database insertions, database retrieval, database table creations, database table updations, database table deletions. So all these operations as a separate layer, that is DAO layer. Database related operations separate. Database related operations separate. Right. Here one point to be remembered now. Now first time we are connecting the database. You know all these logics related to database, no? Yes or no? Right. So all these logics you know, but you must write them separately, not part of Servlet. How to write them separately, I'll try it. That only your DAO layer actually. Right. You see there. We have to stop the Tomcat first. So I am taking one Servlet program, dynamic web project, SERVLET, Servlet application file. I'm going with product app. I'm saying roughly. I'm taking some name there. So up to now, the last three programs are four programs. Right click on this application, build path, configure build path, select class path, add external jar, and Servlet API, open, apply, apply, and close. This you are doing already. But today, database connection is coming. When the database connection is coming, what we have to do? See there? Here, you understood already in the last two or three programs where to write Java, and under SRC main web app, you are writing HTML file. Here WebINF, you are writing your XML. Here one library is there. Can you see library? In that library, the DB jar file should be copied. One jar file I asked you to keep DB jar file on the desktop one folder, no? Right. See there. I will open it. So this is the DB jar file I had. This is the DB jar file. See what I'm doing now. I will copy paste. Copy paste. Don't use build path. Build path is for only Servlet API. Okay, right? This copy paste. Copy and go there. Here lib is there. Lib. Right click on lib and paste. So now it is available in the lib. So in the WebINF web.xml will be there. In lib OJDBC6 will be there. Observe this point now, right? The statement I'm recording down now. Here I'll paste the diagram what I drawn just now. note. Under this diagram, note. So this is the diagram I am going to paste it. So under this diagram, I am writing note, NOT note. In the process of establishing communication between servlet program and in the process of establishing communication between servlet program and database product in the process of establishing communication between servlet program and database product, comma, the db jar file must be copied into lib folder of webinf. lib folder of webinf. In the process of establishing communication between servlet program and database product, the db jar file must be copied into lib folder of webinf. lib folder of webinf. Okay, right. This is the step. Now we have to show one program now. Anyway, so first we have to draw one layout, right? Okay. Always we have to analyze what you are going to do first. After analysis only the program code will come. Okay, right. Now select star from product 40. So these are the things available to us. So I will delete and I'll keep empty now, right? I will keep them empty now. Delete from product 40. So now it is 0 rows. So no rows available there. So through servlet program, I'm adding the product. I'm viewing the product. I'm going to add it. I'm going to view it. Right. So in the analysis, what we are going to do means our target is will show one option to the user. That's called choice.html. Choice.html. In this choice.html, I'm going to take one anchor tags. How many of you know anchor tags? All of you know, no? Anchor tag href is equal to. Through anchor tag, I'm going to show add product. I'm going to show one add product. One more is view products. View products. Add product and view products. Through anchor tag, I'm going to show it href. So in this href, I'll give the URLs. So generally your HTML trainer will say href is equal to another HTML file will be linking, right? Okay. So through href you can link one servlet program, you can link it actually. So here href is equal to add one URL pattern add. Here href is equal to one URL pattern view. Now, whenever I click on this add product, control will come to here. 1 minute. Add product means href is equal to. Yesterday we written one program, no, product.html, I think, right? Href is equal to product.html. Here href is equal to view. Is equal to. So whenever I click on this add product, control will go to product.html. Product.html. Here action is equal to add. Here we are going to read your P code, P code, P name, P price, P quantity. So here we are going to have add product. Add product. So the control will come from here to here. From here the control will come to add product servlet. Add product servlet running on URL pattern. Add means at the rate of web servlet add. So the control will come here. Now where the data is available to you, where the data is available, whatever the data submitted from your HTML form, the data is available which object now? Request object. P code, P name, mouse, P price, 1200, P quantity. So the data is available there. Right. So whenever it is view products, example, whenever you click on view products, the control will come to at the rate of web servlet slash view. View products servlet. here request object will be empty. Why request object empty means you are coming from href no directly, no data submitted. Right. So from there the DOS will come down because remaining actions are database actions only. Right. Okay. Now it has to take the support of DAO and connect it to the database and insert the data there. It has to get the data. So two DAOs we are going to write. It means two programs we are going to write it. Can I type by tomorrow? Right. Because if I started, it should be ended there. Because I should not type 50%. You cannot understand that. It's a complete. Tomorrow, don't miss the class at any cost. This is important because I'm going to extend that logic. There, if anybody have a time, if you can get any imagination, you can do it. Any subclass in your core Java subclass concept is there. Using that subclass, if you can do any action, you can do. So logic should not be written part of servlet. You must write part of subclasses. Subclass methods you can write it. If you get any idea of subclasses, you can finish off it. Right? Tomorrow I'll give the information how to connect to the database. And tomorrow, after observing that class, you must do the assignment. So database connection assignment you must do. So whatever the operations you've done in JDBC, you can do once you observe that, right? Okay. I take a break today bit early, right?